Hey everybody, welcome to Chris Anderson Comics. We are delighted, we being me, are delighted to have my good friend Dave Baker on as a guest. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Chris. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to talk about the funnies.
Yeah, man. We've known each other for like years now. God, I don't even know how long, but
Many moons. We met
many
at
moons.
LA Drink and Draw, which does not exist anymore.
Which does not exist anymore, right? Yeah, and then we run into each other like all the time at
Yeah.
conventions and
Yep.
whatnots and things
hmm
around town because we both are Angelinos.
Many,
Um,
many high fives have been exchanged.
Many high fives,
Yeah. A
and
few hugs, a couple
yeah,
daps,
a
one or
hug
two
or two.
smooches, but we can keep that from our respective partners. It's fine.
Yeah, I'll cut that part.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just gonna be censored. And many
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want. We don't want to make them jealous.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like talking to you is just always a pleasure because you get very excited about comics, as do I. It's like it's our favorite medium. We love it.
Wild.
We love it, and
Wild.
all yeah, we love all kinds of comics, like the gamut from the shittiest of big two books to the best of the independents. All and everything in between. We just
Absolutely.
both just love it. So it's really cool to have you on here. This is why I'm doing the channel so that people can talk passionately about stuff. And yeah, but right now for this episode, what we're going to talk about is your 5 issue epic,
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
really epic. I mean, really is tale, Halloween Boy, which has one. I have one, two, three, four. Not small, not too tiny issues of the book. Fifth, I don't have in hand because you don't have it in hand as of recording, but probably will by the time people see this.
Yes.
Um, so let's kind of why don't you like kind of tell people like what Halloween Boy is as I kind of do a flip through a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I usually describe Halloween Boy as a revisionist action adventure comic that follows a pulp inspired hero named Halloween Boy, who is the patron saint of the impossible on his many escapades and adventures. Um, think about it as like an Indiana Jones movie, but starring Dracula. So he's kind of Doc Savage. He's kind of the Phantom, and he lives in a floating skull-shaped island in lower orbit. And whenever somebody has a problem that they can't solve or a situation that just seems like a no-win scenario, if you show up on his doorstep and say, "Please, Halloween Boy, help us," he'll
Yeah,
probably help you. Um,
yeah.
and so each issue of the book is a one and done adventure following the titular and eponymous Halloween Boy through one of these kind of uh, high concept or science fiction or pulp infused adventures, um, as he combats the impossible. And throughout the background of the book, there is a kind of running mystery all about his family legacy and maybe some secrets that have been kept from him, some elements of his life that he believes to be one way that are maybe another, um, and the book kind of is that dual track narrative where these kind of like throwback one and done adventures that all link together and form this larger tapestry of this person's life.
You know that is as okay. So I just got the fourth volume in the mail the other day and got to sit down and read it. And that's what kind of really struck me as being really great about it is like you said, each one is a one and done adventure. I could find this at a store. This issue, this is the fourth issue. I could find it at a store. I could go home, I can read it, and I can be completely satisfied. But then I went and read them again as a whole, and yeah, there is like a through line through it that is connecting to a bigger story. And so you just the structure of this is it works really really well, man.
Thank you. Yeah, that was something I was really really, was one of the kind of guiding principles of it. Partly because I love that structure of A and B plots, and one and done stories, or stories that wrap up quickly that also build on top of each other. Because I think that feels inextricably linked to the kind of serialized and cliffhanger nature of so many of so many of the tropes associated with pulp characters, or um, characters that come from quote unquote gutter mediums, because you have to be able to quickly illustrate, no pun intended, who the character is and what their central dramatic raison d'etre is, to a reader, and get them through the adventure and hooked, with also the kind of like, hey, come back for more. He's going to be doing this again. And I think that's really a structure that I like a lot, and is a dying structure. Like, it's just not a structure that, because of the fiscal requirements of the medium, because of the page length requirement of bookstore distribution that have popped up over the last 30 years or so, like, it's just not a thing as
Yeah.
much. And I love decompression, and I love a more kind of like cinematic style of storytelling, and there's some of that stuff in there as well.
Hmm.
um, but I think that, I think that tradition of serialized single issue comics has existed and kept the medium alive for the past 100 years. And it works for a reason. And when done
Yeah.
well, it's a very rewarding experience to come back over and over again and spend time with these characters. In this way, that's the reason classic Star Trek still holds up today. That show was made in 1967 or whatever, and we're still watching those exact same episodes because they're structured in that exact same way.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you. One of the things that I really love about this is, like, kind of to your point too, is this page that you have in every, it's not the same page, it's drawn differently in every issue, but where you say, um, and for those who are unaware, and then you go on and you sort of like recap a little bit of what happened before,
Yeah.
and then at the very bottom, if I'm not mistaken, you sort of use the same verbiage to, tell everybody who Halloween Boy is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, he's always described as, the world's greatest archaeologist for hire, super scientist, and warlock.
Yeah.
That's kind of his little like catchphrase thing. And he also is, he has all these nicknames that are associated or iterative versions, plays on other or tropey pulp characters. Like, I don't think it takes a genius to notice that, oh, the Phantom's fake cultural nickname is the Ghost Who Walks, and Halloween Boys is the Demon Who Lives. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I
It's
noticed
not.
a lot of that. I
Yeah,
noticed I noticed some things that actually sort of connected to the story that we're going to talk about in our second episode. I
yeah.
definitely saw some influences from that being pulled into
Oh,
Halloween Boy too.
100%. Yeah. But also,
And
that, for those who are unaware, thing is like a direct structural ripoff of the Phantom. All Phantom stories have. It's not, for those who are unaware. For those who came in late, I think
ah,
is the Phantom's version of that. And in fact, the movie literally starts that way, for those who came in late. And then
really?
it's the like flying pirate flag, and then it tells the story of Christopher Walker, the first Phantom, and
The
so on and
Billy
so
Zane
forth.
movie?
Yeah, the Billy Zane movie.
Uh-huh.
But the comics also have that. I don't remember if the comics are for those who came in late, or if they're a different verbiage, but it's the same. Like, every arc of the Phantom from the newspaper strips started the same way, for where it was like a 6-panel grid or 9-panel grid or whatever. It wasn't 9. I think it's like 6. Where it tells you like, oh, Christopher Walker was a pirate, or was a guy who got attacked by pirates, marooned on his island. The Bengaling people, saved him. They thought he was a man who could not die. He took that mantra on, swore an oath against piracy and greed wherever it reared its ugly head, and that all of his descendants would do the same. And now we're following his 22nd descendant, Kit Walker Jr., who is the current Phantom, and he also holds this, never-ending war against greed and piracy wherever it rears its, evil visage. And so they all start that way, and then you get shuffled off into the story. Um,
Yeah, right. So that was probably, when did the Phantom start publishing?
I think it's like 33 maybe, or 20, 29, 33, somewhere in there.
Okay, so the movie serials were already going at that time. So both of those kind of sort of mirrored each other's structure. I guess you could say in a
Yeah, I
way.
mean, and I think Lee Falk also was a big movie fan. He was a huge theater fan, actually, which is
Yeah,
really interesting. He like owned a theater company in Rhode Island or Vermont, wherever he was from. He owned a theater company, and all the money he made from Mandrake the Magician and the Phantom, just got poured into his local theater, and he would direct and write plays. And if my understanding is correct, I think like a bunch of people were actually performing in them, in the 50s. Like I want to say Charlton Heston maybe was in one play, and I think Marlon Brando was in a play that he put on. Um,
really.
yeah, like early in their careers, obviously, but yeah,
That's a trip.
yeah.
Um, the theme of these sort of different swords that he has keeps popping up too. Where does that sort of come from?
So he has three different bladed types of weapons. He has these kind of like disposable candles that he lights that form magic flaming swords. Yeah,
Yeah.
those guys. And those guys don't really have like they they do have a name. I think it actually says right there, the Sword of Arcan. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, so he has that, which he uses regularly throughout the book. But then he also has another sword that's housed in a parallel dimension called the Obeyer Blade, which is like a magical jewel with a Dracula's head in it that is a sentient sword that can only be used once every 666 years.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually the toy is going to come with the Obeyer Blade, um, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, okay,
Um,
so that's another thing to talk about at some point in this conversation.
yeah.
That's really
And
cool.
then he also has a bunch of knives. He has a bunch of knives called the Seven Brothers of Illusia, I think.
Yeah.
I should know this stuff more because
Your own
it's my
book.
goddamn book. But they're basically like it's like six knives that all have the minds of ancient monks, alien monks who've meditated for so long and so hard that they've combined their consciousness into these knives. And he was given these knives as a ceremonial reward after saving this planet culture. It's not quite clear, but he saved a bunch of people. And in order to repay that debt, the monk knives swore a debt of um, fealty to Halloween Boy to help him in his quests. And he has to like utter a magic incantation, and then they appear and they kind of like have a will of their own, sort of, and they like respond to what he says, but he can also hold them and throw them and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. All of it sort of reminds me of like Stormbringer and the Moorcock,
totally,
books.
100%,
Um,
100%.
and the more the merrier for squeezing that into all of literature. Like
Yeah, yeah,
it's such a
yeah,
great trope. So yeah, I mean, I love the way that you incorporate so many of the things that you love just at like I'm doing a book right now too that's very much like that. I call it my kitchen sink book. I'm just throwing everything that I love at it. And what it ends up doing is even though you're wearing a lot of the inspiration on your sleeve, it really does become its own thing.
yeah.
And as you're going on the journey of writing this, it is I'm sure evolving, and your own ideas are incorporated into it, and it really does become like a cohesive, this is a definitely a Dave Baker book. You know what I mean?
I'll I'll take it, man. Thank you, Chris. Yeah,
I really love it. I got the first issue and I was just like so surprised, not surprised, but like so excited to when I got to the end of it that I immediately had to get the second one. And I think that, people are going to feel the same way. In fact, when you, if you're listening and you're ordering, I would say just go ahead and get them all at the same time. Don't even worry about whether or not you're going to dip your toe in. Just get them all. Um, so did you you drew this all in pencil?
yeah, yeah. The way I draw now, I basically the book I drew before this, which is coming out in February, Mary Tyler Moorhawk, that
Right.
Top Shelf is putting out. That book was I basically retrained myself in the process of making comics. Not necessarily retrain myself how to draw, but just like
Sure.
I had spent 4 or 5 years drawing this series of 3 graphic novels, and I felt maybe that they weren't as well received as I thought they should be because I'm an egomaniac and I love the things I make. And when people are somewhat indifferent, then you're like, fucking goddamn it.
Yeah.
um, so I was like, how do I just make more? How do I because those books are big. The Action Hospital books are like 200, 250 pages each.
Yeah.
So
They're
they
phone
take a
books.
long time to make.
Yeah.
But then my experience with them is that it felt like it had this little window of relevance that I felt wasn't yielding a positive enough result for the amount of work I had put into it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of evaluated, okay, how do I not spend 4 years making a book in a room by myself? How do I not have to draw it twice? Those are the two remits that I kind of wanted to do it to come approach it from a craft standpoint. And then narratively, I was like, how do I make something that's a little bit more accessible? Because my book, Mary Tyler Moorhawk, I think is the best thing I've done, but it is objectively more academic. It's a half prose, half graphic novel book. So it's, there's letters from a journalist 100 years in the future. There's newspaper articles. There's all this like ephemera there. And there's two different narratives. There's a comic book storyline where you're following this family of super scientists and action adventure kind of tropey characters trying to stop the apocalypse. And then you're also following a journalist 100 years in the future who's trying to track down the creator of the TV show that was adapted from those comics who's gone missing. And so, so I was like, objectively, like, it's just a weirder thing, right? And like, I think it's
Yeah.
really cool, but it is a weirder thing, and I freely admit that. So when I, sold the book to Top Shelf, and I had like a year before it came out, I was like, okay, what am I going to do with this year? I want to make something that I serialize myself. I didn't want to have to deal with a publisher yet. Like, I'll deal with publishers later. Um, and I wanted to make something incrementally. I wanted to put it out every X amount of time, whatever that might be. And I wanted to make something that was a little bit cleaner. And of course, I'm incapable of not making things complicated. So
Me
my
too.
version of making something cleaner is like, this book is basically like a book that is just one adventure in this decades long adventure life of this character. In the same way as Buckaroo Banzai is like the sequel movie to a franchise that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
This is like the comic book series that you walk into and it's been running for 500 issues and you don't know it.
Yeah.
um
Right.
yeah, like I wanted to make something that felt like when I first started trying to read Claremont's X-Men, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know who this is, but I wanted to make that in a way that was accessible. I wanted to kind of have a world that felt deep and complicated with different power dynamics and weird creatures and monsters, and make it, everything that I like about the medium uh, in this context, but also make it so you could understand what the fuck was happening.
Yeah. Right.
um, and also, I just changed the way I draw. The previous books I did,
Right.
I penciled in, HB pencil, inked with brushes and tech pens, scanned it in, lettered it in Illustrator. And for this book, I hated that process. It took so long. So I draw all my construction lines and rough drawings in red architectural pencil. And then
Okay.
I draw finished line art in pencil, scan it, pull out the red, and then letter everything and do minor redrawing tweaks digitally in Procreate. And it's just sped everything up just exponentially. Like I like you said, issue 5 is done, and it's 61 pages, 62 pages, and then issue 4 is, I think, 58 pages. And then
Okay.
all the other ones are I think in the mid 30s. So,
Yeah.
overall, I think it's like 175 maybe pages in basically a year. Um,
That's a feat.
and Yeah, it's a lot of work, and I'm not saying that it's quick in terms of that I don't put the time on the page.
I
I
mean,
very
no, I mean, look at this. You've got this ash falling from the sky. I mean, that would have taken
yeah,
hours just to do on these two pages alone, you know,
yeah,
with everything.
right,
No,
yeah,
you are hyper detailed with you know, elements. You know, you really jam pack your scenes. You don't skim on backgrounds or you know epic crowds, you know, or anything
yeah. I
like
mean, and
that.
that's the stuff that I like doing, which is why I purposefully took the inking stage out of it because I really like that page specifically was not originally in there as that way. That was just supposed to be a reveal panel where he like rounded a corner and then saw all these big stone hands. And I was like, this moment feels like it needs to be like a big reveal. And I also at the same time realized that I'd drawn 3 issues of Halloween Boy and hadn't drawn a pumpkin once. And I was like,
Yeah,
I feel like we should probably put a big pumpkin in here.
yeah, yeah. This one here, you mean? This was supposed to be the
Yeah,
reveal.
that giant
Yeah,
pumpkin thing that they just came out of. Yeah.
yeah,
And the nice thing about it is because they're in this weird dimension in between dimensions, mindscape, psychic plane of existence, you could just drop a fucking giant pumpkin there and you don't have to really explain why it's there. It's just a giant pumpkin. Like, I don't know.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, you can just have fun with it and go.
Yeah.
I really love the pencil style. I remember when you sort of threw it out there when you were getting started with to in the social media. You had like two different color choices that you were gonna kind of
Mm.
go between, and you ended up with this kind of peach, almost orange
Yeah.
style.
Yeah.
And I assume that the choice to do just sort of white and peach. Well, you also have purple in here.
Yeah. Purple is all the like flashbacky slash anybody from like generations past
Sure.
that are connected to Halloween Boy. All of that stuff is purple. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great device to use. You know, when it's the only time that it shows up, it's really noticeable. Especially
It's
when there's a few scenes where just somebody is sort of standing there and you're like, "Oh, okay, I see." So it's either, you know, it's the past kind of talking to him.
yeah.
But I assume that you decided to go with the, you know, white and one color also just to sort of save time to
Oh,
not have
100%. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think it also, having that spot color, I think, kind of solidifies the pencil drawing. Where like if it was just a pencil drawing, I don't think it would have in air quotes the same production value. Um, but with that single tone, it just immediately you're like, oh no, that's a finished thing. It's done.
Yeah.
That's what it's supposed to be. Which is like, I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe
Well,
it
you
is.
know, I appreciate too that you didn't just sort of like um, crank the saturation on the pencils. You let them be and you let them
Hmm.
shine. You know, if
Yeah,
I was penciling this thing, it would have just been a smear across the whole thing. I'm fascinated by people's pencils anyway, and I just really love to see clean pencils. I don't know how people do it. Um, Mine are always a mess. In fact, when I lay it out, lay things out with in pencil, if anybody was to go come and look at it, you know, they would have no idea what was on the
yeah,
page because I do most of the drawing in like the inking stage. I'll
yeah,
tighten up faces, but other than that, I do it in that. And so I just love the almost well, tactile isn't the word, but textured
yeah.
nature of the pages. I mean, it's
I
just
I
amazing.
I really like how it came out too. I think it's really it's not a stylistic avenue that I would have thought I was going down, but
Yeah.
birthed out of pure necessity. I've found some very interesting ways of making it feel compelling and like a branching avenue out of stuff I was already interested in previously.
Yeah.
Um, and and also just going off what you're showing, I love writing those
Yeah.
end essays. They're
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
Yes. Yeah. I wanted to specifically look at this one. Well, you know, all of them are great. It talks about Highlander and how you kind of pulled some inspiration from that too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then these toys pop up. Now
Mm-hmm.
these are
Mm-hmm.
not. These are are these kind of like fan made toys, or are
These
they?
are me. No, I hired a sculptor, and like this is my pandemic hobby, was making prototypes for
Oh my
figures.
god, you made
Um,
these?
yeah, I mean, I didn't sculpt them. I hired two different
Oh, I see.
sculptors. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, but I designed them and I ended up painting them. They're all, this one is resin printed, but the others are just standard 3D printer filament.
Okay.
Um, and my goal was to get them manufactured, and I've had various talks with people, some of which have gone very well and then have fallen apart, some of which have not gone very well and then fallen apart. So the way I think about it is we're batting 1,000, baby. We're just falling
Yeah,
apart, you
yeah,
know?
right. But you do have another. There's another sculpt that I saw somewhere.
Yes, there is an action figure coming out from Fresh Monkey Fiction, Bill Murphy's toy company. They have a line called Operation Monster Force. They are fully injection molded, 30 points of articulation or 20 points. I don't know the number. Whatever the number of articulation points is.
It can move.
He can move, and he looks exactly like Halloween Boy. Um
It's
and
amazing.
yeah, and
I'll try to put
he's
some shots up in the video so people can see what we're talking about.
yeah, I believe he goes up for pre-order on Big Bad Toy Store October 16th, which is I think Monday or Tuesday of next week, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Um and yeah, no, it's he comes with multiple hands. He comes with two 45s like the character has. He comes with the Obeyer blade, and a flaming attachment. So he can just be holding the Obeyer blade, or he can have it on fire. There's like a red see-through plastic that you can clip to it, and also his M16. He comes with an M16, and I feel like there's something else he comes with, but I am blanking now. Um, yeah,
That's just
and it's
incredible.
yeah, it's pretty surreal. Also, it's weird looking at these early issues because like the no one else is going to care about this, but
No, this is
uh
good.
looking at him, that drawing right there of him riding the Tyrannosaurus Rex, not Tyrannosaurus Rex,
Right.
um, Saber, his trusty pal, which is definitely not based off of Angel, the Phantom's horse. Um, uh, so Saber, that drawing of Saber and Halloween Boy is a virtual tracing of a drawing that I did for King Features to show them what I wanted to do with the Phantom. Um,
Ah,
so like his gloves, his right arm, and the ears are uh, not from the original drawing, obviously, and some of his upper torso was changed.
okay.
But the I think 2019, 2020, somewhere in there. I was working with an independent comics company as like an adjunct editor, and I was talking to some people, like getting some licenses. We were talking with some Japanese companies about licensing some manga rights and some Japanese TV shows to bring over here as independent comics. And then I was like, while we're doing this, what about like the Phantom?
Yeah. Just
And
slid that in there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And the publisher was like, "Yeah, sure. If you want to go try and chase it down." And I was like, "I mean, can't hurt." So I found the King Features like licensing email or something, and I just emailed them out of the blue, being like, "Hey, I know this is probably a pretty long shot, but you know, I work with this company. Blah blah blah. These are some books we've made, and we would be interested in talking about the Phantom." And shock of all shocks, they were like, "Oh, okay, we're not doing anything with the Phantom right now. You want to have meetings?" So we had some meetings. I pitched some ideas. They liked the ideas, and then it kind of started to get a little bit more serious. And they were like, oh, "Can you write like a God document of what you would do if we gave you the rights to the Phantom and Flash Gordon?" And so I was like, "Ah, okay, here we go."
Yeah.
So I wrote a very detailed document of what I thought were the great things about the Phantom and the things I think have not aged as well and are holding the character back, and what I think would be a big kind of noisy, new, weird way of taking the character that could potentially generate some interest both for the publisher and for the rights holders. And we had some more talks, and then ultimately they just decided, this isn't the right direction for us, and that's totally cool.
Yeah.
Uh, because selfishly, now I did a bunch of those ideas in here and I just own it. I
Yeah,
didn't have to give
exactly.
them the rights to it.
So the
Um,
work wasn't for nothing.
yeah, exactly. And I think, um, look, Halloween Boy definitely owes a bended knee to the works of Lee Falk and everyone else who's contributed to the sizable and lengthy legacy of the Phantom. But I really, and maybe I'm too close to it, but I really think that it is a separate thing. Like it's not
It
just
is.
me riffing.
It is not. It is not. You can tell that it's a love letter to certain things, but it is definitely Halloween Boy is definitely its own thing. You know,
Yeah.
it
Um,
holds up definitely 100% on its own. Love these cutaway shots always.
yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. I'm not that great at them. Nicole, my partner Nicole Gu, who
Yeah.
I make some books with,
Hmm.
uh, she whenever I write those, she's always grumpy about it. She's always like, I don't want to fucking do this, and then she just obliterates it. She's
Of course
so
she
good
does.
at it. She's
Yeah.
so good at it, and I'm just over here seething, being like, fuck, I wish I could do that. And this is my version of trying to do that, where I'm like, I don't know, it's a Skull Island.
Yeah. Some people just got it. You succeeded here though.
That's very nice, Chris. Thank you. I don't know that I did, but I'll take it.
You did. You did. I'm not just saying that. Um, well, well, I mean, and then, like you said, these end essays in each of them, uh, you know, kind of, well, they serve a few purposes. They serve to, talk about your love for the things that inspired this, but then it also, serves as a journal uh, for you as well, especially when this one, because you had just gotten back from Angoulême, right?
Yeah,
Angoulême,
yeah. I was
Angoulême.
living in France. I was living in Europe for 4 months, 3 months in
Yeah,
France, one in England, and traveled around doing a bunch of signings. My book came out in French. My book, Forest Hills Bootleg Society, with
yeah,
Nicole Gu. That was originally over here, published by Simon and Schuster. That would be her.
that's
That's the
her.
cutie. Um, the book came out over here in Simon and Schuster, and then was published by Sarbacane in France. And we were just going over there to just live for a while, and then ultimately everything just kind of fell together, where we met all these cartoonists, and we
Yeah,
lived in multiple cities in France, and it was super fun. And we went to Brussels. I'm a huge Tintin fan,
yeah.
um, and so going to France and seeing the original Tintin, or as he's originally called over there, Tintin, seeing the
Tonton.
original Tintin pages, it was
Isn't
just
that
like
what
it was.
Han and Luke rode on Hoth?
Yes, yes,
A
yes.
Tintin?
And I thought he was a Nazi sympathizer on the inside. I was actually surprised. As for anybody who doesn't know, that is something that Hergé, the creator of Tintin, has been accused. That's me posing with a giant fucking bronze head
Yeah,
of Tintin, or of Hergé, the
Hergé,
creator of
yeah,
Tintin. And he's been accused at multiple points of being a collaborator because during the war, after the Nazis took over Belgium, he fled to France, and then because of the request of the king, the king of Belgium said everyone should come back to France, or back to Belgium. And Hergé listened, went back, and kept working at the newspaper that he had previously been employed at, that was run by the Third Reich. And so, because of that, there's a lot of consternation about what is the implication of that? Was he a Nazi sympathizer? Was he a collaborator? And
yeah,
at one point after the war, he was banned from publishing in Belgium. And then ultimately, a court case was brought up, and he they reversed it. They were like, he's too big a cultural
Yeah,
institution.
Tintin's just too popular.
Basically, yeah.
Basically,
Um,
yeah.
and uh, we don't need to necessarily go have a whole conversation, but I am bringing that up
Well,
to say that he's a complicated person, and there's definitely multiple ways to view his legacy, um, and it's very interesting to me because he's from a very conservative, weird background. He worked initially at a Catholic newspaper, and his mentor, who was more of a father figure than his actual father, was a hard right Catholic who was very uh, staunchly opinionated, and you can see that in a lot of Hergé's early work. And
yeah.
then over the course of making work, he befriended an artist, a Chinese artist named Chang, who really unlocked a lot of stuff in him. They became best friends. He learned about Buddhism and Eastern philosophies and perspective. Chang taught him about literal drawing perspective. He was an assistant
Yes.
on Mystery of the Blue Lotus, and uh, that like, look at that. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
all of that work is also assistance. That's not probably Hergé either, because by
Right.
Mission to the Moon, Studio Hergé had existed. Um, uh, oh boy, it's somebody trying to say something to me. Um, but yeah, it's I love his work. I'm fascinated with him as a person, both his maybe not being on the right side of history in some contexts and the ways that he tried to um, navigate those situations. I don't think he's a perfect person, but I'm fascinated by his approach to things.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue for me to let people know that if you want to know more about Hergé and his legacy, you can go to uh, the Deep Cuts podcast, which has is it just one episode
It's
on
I don't
Hergé?
remember if it's one or two, but we did a whole episode all about Hergé and his Nazi potential sympathies, or just his um, uh, poor decision to return to France and work for the newspaper.
Right. Um, I when I work when I'm doing layouts, I can't listen to anything. I need silence. When I'm inking in that stage, I usually put on like an audiobook or something, and I listen to podcasts. I listened to a lot of different podcasts at one point, and then at some point it just became that the only podcast that I wanted to listen to was Deep Cuts with you and Andrew Price, because it's such a bizarre show. You pick the most obscure, odd topics, as you say in the intro of it, and uh, I mean, you're just going to be surprised and shocked with every single episode. So I'm going to put links. I'll put a specific link to the Hergé
Well, thank
episode, but
you,
then people can
Chris. That
go
means a
and take a
lot.
look at that too, because
And
it's just such a great
you
podcast
know,
that you guys came
making
up with.
making a podcast is a labor of love. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. Why else would you do it?
it's the money, Chris. It's the
Oh yeah,
money,
the
obviously.
truckloads of half
Yeah,
pennies that they back up
yeah,
at your house.
yeah. But
Um,
we've I think we've made 175 or 200 episodes at this point. I kind of don't really remember. Um, we publish every week, come Wednesday, rain, sleet, or shine, or sometimes every once in a while not, because one of us is traveling. But usually it's usually every Wednesday.
well, another thing that doesn't hurt is that they're lengthy.
Yeah.
Like every one you're gonna get, and over an hour of content. It's not like a half an hour podcast or 15-minute podcast that you can put on and then you got to like stop what you're doing and go and you've got you dive, you really do
Yeah,
dive deep.
they're very labor intensive. Some of the episodes we've done, we've worked on for months. Like, the season 1 finale is a musical with 11 original songs, all about the history of Napster. And
Yes,
we
you guys
sang the
are
whole
nuts.
thing. We sang the whole thing, and we literally worked on that episode for probably about 2 months, 3 months. And I say we, but it was mostly my co-host Andrew Price who did. He did all of the. And he wrote all of the songs, did all the recording and mixing, wrote most of the actual episode, wrote all of the lyrics. I think I co-wrote some of them. I co-wrote like 3 songs, 2 songs, something like that, and then also had to walk me through the recording process
Yeah.
because it was during the pandemic, so we were recording remotely,
Yeah.
where I would be singing my parts in my apartment at like 2 a.m. I'm sure my neighbors loved
Oh
this.
yeah.
And then he would be like, no, 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 no. You need to hit the T harder. You need to do that harder. And he would like record scratch tracks for me where he would be like, and then I would be in my apartment like listening to them and singing along to memorize the lyrics for like a hour beforehand. And then like a maniac recording it, and then being like fuck, going back fuck, and like
Yep.
there's a reason we've only made one musical
Right.
over the 200 or whatever episodes.
Listen, man, I'm a singer songwriter. Um, I've been in the studio more times than I can count to record my own stuff, and I know exactly what you're saying. It doesn't matter if you're new to it or not. It's just how it is in the studio every single time.
Yep.
But to it's just too bad that you guys didn't like set up your cell phones and get footage of that, because
Oh
that
my
would have been
god.
a great documentary to pair along with it.
There's definitely footage of it. There's 100% footage of it. I guarantee
Okay.
you Andrew has it, but I don't ever want to see it. I never want to
Oh,
see it.
well then don't just let Andrew put it out.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, just never click play. Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Well, I mean, what else is there to say about Halloween Boy except for go to heydavebaker.com and pick it up now, along with all of the other amazing books that Dave, and I assume books that
Yeah.
you also collaborated with Nicole and other people on.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
there's the Star Trek stuff is on there, Night Hunters with Alexis Zirrit, all of my books with Nicole Goo, and I don't think my Turtles books are up there yet. I should put those up. Yeah. Uh,
and people can find you on the Deep Cuts podcast. I will put a link to that too. Where else can people find you?
on the socials at xdavebakerx, or like you said,
Oh,
heydavebaker.com. Yeah.
yeah, just like it says on the ticker tape right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
check that
the
out.
yeah. The Chiron? Is that a Chiron? No, a Chiron is when it's over the ticker. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, Dave, thanks for coming in and talking about this. I really love this series. I cannot wait to read the final issue, and I hope that you know a million people that watch this go and pick it up too, and you can retire in France permanently.
Yeah, man. I'm going to be living in the south of France off of that sweet, sweet Halloween boy money.
Sweet. Well, thanks for coming, man. Appreciate it. All right, later. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my Patreon, where at the $3 level, I'll send you my sketchbook, The Sketch of the Masters. And at the $5 level, I'll send you the sketchbook plus my mini stories, not Man nor Beast, but Moss, Stench of the Sea, and The Voyeur. At the $8 level, after a year, you'll get a commission. Don't forget to sign up for my newsletter in the show notes. Check out my store, where I have lots of original art. And you can also buy books like Lost Angels, a sci-fi YA adventure about a girl who has to solve a mystery in a crashed alien city. Spectral, a showcase of fear, is about a sinister puppet master who travels from town to town telling tales to children who may never sleep again. You can request a commission at any time just by contacting me. Here is a list of the upcoming conventions that I'll be at the time that this video was released. And don't forget to like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the video. Again, thanks for watching.